Hello everyone, welcome back to a new replay cast. Today we have SOS in the bottom right spawn against the blue Protoss versus none other than Mr. Serral himself in the top left. So of course the red Zerg player. Now this is a game that was played last IEM Katowice in the group stage. It was the first game of their best of 3. And it's most likely going to be a very interesting game. SOS of course a very tricky player. Loves to do lots of things to confuse his opponent. Usually he expands, but you never know how many probes there's going to be at one of his expands. You never know what kind of tech is hidden. So it's always on the opponent to figure out exactly what SOS is doing. But the scary thing about SOS is that he isn't just a cheeser. He can also play a perfect macro game. Like, he's very good at macros, very good unit control. The thing is, his openings are always so weird. So he has a very good chance of just beating you straight up in the early game. And then even if he doesn't do that there, he still has a good chance to beat you later on in the game. Now, of course, Serral is Mr. Stable Genius over here. And he's very good at holding everything that usually gets thrown at him. But SOS might be a bit higher level than the opponent Serral usually faces when it comes to some clown stuff that gets thrown his way. So let's see if Serral will be able to hold whatever SOS has planned for him this game. Now, we see something interesting happening straight at the start already. We see a cybernetics core built before the Nexus. This means that your first Adept is going to be 10 seconds faster. It also means that your Adepts or your Warp Gate can start faster, and perhaps you can do some pressure with just pure gateway units afterwards. Now, at what cost does this come? It means your Nexus is delayed by about 20 seconds. It also means you have to cut 1 or 2 probes. Because of how you have to build your buildings. You build pylon, a simulator afterwards, and you don't have a continuous probe production like you usually would have, because you need to cut some probes to get your pylon down at 20. So, like I said, we see a faster Adept than usual, straight away starting Warp Gate as well. So this could be some gateway aggression follow-up, perhaps with some tech, perhaps a Robo, perhaps a Stargate. Of course, possible to get a Twilight with this as well. Now, the least likely option is a Stargate, because when you play Cybernetics core before Nexus, you're already lacking some gas, which means that Stargate is the most expensive tech structure. It's going to be harder to get to that desired gas count. Now, we're going to see what SOS decides to do, as he's also pylon blocking his opponent a couple of times. Cancelled 2 pylons already. And you could say his goal is to block this hatchery for quite some time, but his goal really was to distract the Zerglings. And now, all of a sudden, here's an Adept from a core first that's 10 seconds faster than usual. Managed to kill 1 drone already. Shades out with 5 HP, and he also forced 2 Spore Crawlers. So quite expensive here for Serral. Definitely worth the 2 cancels of the pylon. Of course, if we take a look at units lost, we see SOS is slightly ahead. Of course, had to cancel some pylons and lost a probe. On the other hand, we see Serral, who lost a drone and had to cancel, and a Ling, I guess, and had to cancel 2 spores as well. So Serral is scouting his opponent, sees that there's 3 gate on the way, followed up by a Twilight Council. Now, this exact build order SOS has been using in PvT as well. So this is one of those build orders that definitely can be used in any matchup. Extremely similar, except I guess you don't really do pylon blocks against Terran. And we see SOS move out with 5 Adepts here. And then most likely he will be going into that quick glaive upgrade behind this. So you do an initial pressure, forcing out a lot of links, which isn't ideal against Adepts. Against Adepts, ideally, especially with glaives, you want to be getting some roaches, but because this hits so early, you need to build links as the Zerg player, and that's exactly what Serral is doing. But that's cutting in his work count. You see 33 workers for Serral, 38 workers right now for SOS, and he's just going to shade out. If Serral does not manage to catch these Adepts, he's actually going to be in a little bit of trouble, as he does catch the Adepts here, as we see at least 1 Adept, 2, this one might fall as well, no, just 2 Adepts falling. 3rd Adept survives with 2 HP, so might be able to make it back home safely. Serral going for a last ditch effort to try and get that Adept, will be able to get it, right? Yeah, okay, so 3 Adepts do go down. Good trade here for Serral, who gets a bunch of the Adepts. But there's still the follow-up attack here, and Serral's still only on 33 workers. He's trying to throw in a couple of extra drones, but he's also already starting his roaches because he's afraid of that glaive follow-up. And here it comes indeed. We see now 11 adepts moving across the map here for SOS. Still has a stalker in the wall. Serral will attempt a run by, but SOS, of course, a little bit too good. Has a stalker ready exactly just for that. We'll warp in 2 adepts behind it. Meanwhile, we have all the adepts on the other side shading in. Serral is ready, but the real damage that's being done here isn't really the direct damage that SOS is doing. As we can see, the worker count is pretty heavily in favor of SOS, I would say. He's up about 7-8 workers. He snipes 1 roach, tries to get a second one. Shade does not finish, gets cancelled. Serral, of course, was ready with queens and roaches, and SOS will need to make his retreat temporarily as a couple of extra adepts show up now. Will be met by some links, but links are no match for these adepts with the resonating glaives. And here comes a prism. This is what I was talking about. It's just attack after attack after attack. We have attacks from 2 sides. We have a prism coming in now, immortal starting, as well as a dark shrine. So there's basically a lot of tricks that are at play here for SOS. Initially with the 5 adepts, then the 11 adepts with glaives, then the prism. You might put some adepts into the prism, go into the main base, exactly what he's doing. And then he might follow up with some DTs as well, which Serral is ready for DTs in theory. I mean, he has a lair, he can start overseers. He's even starting an overseer now, as he's a little bit afraid of that. He's like, hey, wait, why is there no pressure at the moment? It might be because you're transitioning into some other tech. So he's like, all right, I'm just gonna build an overseer here. SOS meanwhile dropping these adepts into the main mineral line. Won't be able to get too much. This prism is stuck though. Should get recalled ASAP, otherwise Serral will be able to get that with the queens. 2 adepts over here idling, making sure that the moment Serral moves out, a bunch of drones will die. 3 adepts on this side, and oh, these are first 2 DTs making their way across the map. Look at these guys. Wow, how fearsome are those? See if they will be able to get any kind of damage done. Now, of course, this is kind of going to be a surprise attack. There is a single overseer. Where is it currently positioned? Oh, it's across the map scouting right now. So that's a really bad timing here for Serral, who is basically keeping all of his bases empty. 1 DT will be making its way into the main base. 1 DT will be heading towards the natural. And I guess these 2 adepts will shade into the 3rd base. Yeah, there we go. Let's see how fast Serral responds. Serral spots it on the map, I think. Immediately starts an overseer before any drone fell down. 7 drones already gone down, and now the shade of the adepts also comes in. So 8 drones have fallen, and no mining whatsoever right now. All the mineral lines have been pulled away. So the DT falls in the natural. The adepts, 1 adept fell, and there's still 1 DT. Look at this hiding in the rain. This never really seems to work for me, but this always seems to work for SOS. Let's see if it works against someone as good as Serral. Yeah, where's your overseer, Serral? Serral just keeps his overseer in the main for now. DT is still hiding in the corner, of course, not in vision of the overseer, so won't be able to get spotted. Meanwhile, a roach counterattack managed to get a couple of probes on the other side of the map. Does get cleaned up by SOS, and SOS has been able to keep his opponent's worker count so low. No 4th base on the way yet for Serral. I mean, it's 8 minutes in game, +1 just starting. Like, usually the 5th base would be done for Serral in a standard game, right? And probably have +2 done. His hive would be almost done at this point in a standard Serral game. So, really Serral playing a little bit out of his comfort zone here. As he doesn't have a very high worker count, he has to make do with small amounts of units, and he needs to go find some damage right now, because even though he's up in supply, ideally as a Zerg against a Protoss player, you want to be up a lot more in supply. You want to get a... oh... you want to get a way bigger worker count than your Protoss opponent, but really Serral has just been pretty equal in workers all game long, and this is a nice little link counter attack which might be able to get a couple of probes. 2 probes already been going down. 1 cannon to defend them is not enough. These links do not have +1 yet, but there's enough links that they can just kind of ignore the cannon. SOS turns around, snipes all the links, and it's like, okay, you want to do it like that. Now that I cleaned it up, I'm gonna go attack again. Still no 4th base here for Serral, of course, who has been building a lot of Ravagers. And the Ravager is a unit that's great at defending stuff, but you don't really want to get too many of them, as they really lose their value the bigger the army of the TOS gets. Once things like Storm or Colossi get built, Ravagers quickly drop in value. And they're quite expensive to build as well, of course. It's a very expensive Zerg unit. Now we have a bunch of Immortals here, 4 Immortals for SOS. We have a lot of stalkers, a bunch of sentries. The one thing that Serral's really missing this game is creep. The stalker sentry army is not that powerful when fought on creep. But when there's no creep, banelings usually have a hard time connecting with this army. Roaches have a hard time getting in there. Retreating away is very difficult already against force field, but if you're off creep, it's going to become even more difficult. And right now, 2 tumors being sniped off once again by these stalkers. Stalkers moving forward, of course, have the blink back available, and there we go. A couple of force fields will make this a safe retreat for SOS, who is getting into +2, more immortals, and I think I saw a Templar Archive as well. 4 roach run by is doing some work here, as Serral is setting up either an attack, or is this a counter attack? I think this was intended as a real attack, but right now that he's being attacked, he's like, oh, wait a second, I'll just kind of flank my opponent, I guess. As SOS is pushing forward very far right now, straight into a big surround of Serral. Good force fields coming out of SOS though, who might lose his Prism. No, Prism stays alive. A lot of the immortals falling already. It's a massive fight. 10 workers falling as well on the other side of the map. Big fight happening here as well. Let's see if SOS managed to control this. Yes, he does manage to control this. Only Blink Stalkers remaining at this point. At this side of the map, what's remaining over here? A couple of Blink Stalkers, 1 DT, but 12 workers went down. And this is really what Serral need. If Serral would have just won this fight over here, and not had done a counter attack here, that probably wouldn't have been enough, because he would have been very close in worker count. The supply would still be very close, and we see +2 is already, well, basically done for SOS, which would mean he would have an upgrade lead. His Templar Archive is done, which means Storm could start any moment now, and if you're getting Storm against a Zerg who's only on 3 bases, that's a real issue for the Zerg, because they can't really get this massive units, they can't really get these massive amounts of banelings, or they can't tack up to the Brute Lords that they so desperately need once there's a lot of Templar available in the Protoss army. But for now, SOS is like, you know what, I don't think I'll ever be able to get the Storm safely. I'm just gonna stick to what I've been doing all game long, and that's Mass Blink Stalker, Immortal Sentry. And goes for another push, and he's really trying to deny this 4th base very hard. It's 1 more DT, it does get picked off before it gets picked up by the Prism. What run by is this? These are banelings, of course, still only +1, so will be 2-shotting probes rather than 1-shotting probes. 14 more banelings are being morphed in at home, and Serral is moving into, well, what's his goal? The main base. So he most likely wants to break this position. Run by coming in, good warp in here by SOS, who spots it immediately, and these banelings will be cleaned up, but this does so. Careful here, SOS, you don't want to be walking into the rest of Serral's army. This does allow Serral to move up this ramp, is what I was gonna say, and Serral's not quite sure if he wants to attack in here. +2 is not done yet for him. How many banelings has he? Yes, 25. That's a lot of banelings, but there's still a decent amount of force fields. There's what, 4 immortals once again? 5 immortals even, as another one joins the fray. I would love to see Storm being started right now. I'm a big fan of this Adept warp in as well. Still harassing throughout the game with these Adepts. Trying to do some damage, but yeah, I really feel like Storm would be such a valuable addition here for SOS, who is... honestly, he's been in a pretty decent position all game long. Just that his army composition, he's kind of putting himself on a timer with this, as this army doesn't scale too well into the later stages of the game, where there's going to be loads of +2 banelings. The more banes against this army, usually the better. It's also a big Ravager count, which is nice, can force your opponent to blink away. +2 has finished now, so this baneling run by all of a sudden becomes a lot more scary. A single baneling can clear all of these probes. Now, with a big Ling run by, well, not a run by, a run in basically, a run in with Archons. That's something that Lings usually don't want. This game has a lot of action, and I feel like I'm missing a little bit of it. We have another DT being sent across the map. Where are your overseers, Serral? Here's an overseer. We'll be able to take out this DT. And Serral right now is not aware that this 4th base has started just now. Still no Storm done, right? No Storm done. 2-1 upgrades are done though. And this is a very difficult angle for Serral to defend, as there's no real flank possibility here for Serral, who can only really come from one side. And this is a big army to fight just from one side. Ideally come with a bit of a flank, so not all your banelings are so clumped up. Good micro so far by both players. SOS not wanting to overextend. Serral not wanting to overextend into this choke either. Kind of hold positioning in this well, semi-small concave. I'm not even sure if you can call this a concave, as there's barely any room here. So we see SOS slowly but surely pushing forward. Banelings rolling in once again, activating the shields on these immortals. So all the barriers are being popped, but of course there's a cooldown on that. So if SOS just waits a couple of seconds, he might just be able to go again. No, he goes in immediately, and now 2 immortals fall for free. Without those barriers, immortals are quite squishy. They of course do have a lot of HP, but they actually die, which usually is very uncommon if they have that barrier open. Here comes the Zealot and the Archon reinforcement, as almost all of the Banelings have disappeared now, so good timing for these Zealots to finally come in. Couple of more piles raining down. A lot of workers are going down as well, so Serral basically putting SOS in a complete all-in position here. Right now this 4th base needs to die, this 3rd base needs to die as well, so if SOS does not manage to do that, it's going to be very hard. Army supply still relatively even though the supply is very much in favor of Serral, who will be able to reinforce much better, and with his ever-growing, just ever-reinforcing Banelings. Not sure how he does. It felt like he never ran out of Banelings this fight. This is the first time he actually has 0 Banelings, but now there's really nothing left anymore here. Ideally you want to be fighting this army with charged Archon, and the moment that the Banelings are gone, right? Like Zealots are pretty much useless if there's Banelings, but once the Banelings are gone, they become real good all of a sudden, and I think Serral will be able to pick it up here as he wins this game. Pretty crazy game, Well done by Serral. Now, if you did like this video, feel free to subscribe, leave a like, and comment down below if you want to see more of this. And I'll see you boys tomorrow with a new video. Bye bye.